Hi all, Rex King here. Today I wanted to do a presentation of, let's imagine we're a young person trying to figure out what's going on. Why is the world it is? And you've been told the Adam and Eve story from childhood. And you decide, hey, look, what I want to do is I want to look at this story and see if I can make sense of it from the viewpoint of then and the world today. Let's see if we can do that. So the name of this video is What Really Happened in the Garden of Eden, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to look at it from the viewpoint of the chicken or the egg. And you'll understand what I'm talking about as we move along. What really happened in the Garden of Eden? That's really what all this is about. I mean, what really happened when the egg of mankind was put together? What was put in the egg? What happened? Okay, so let's look at it from the mind of God. Okay, and the mind of God is, let's look at it from the mind of God as the super adult mind. In other words, the parent finished mind, the perfect mind. Okay, so there's a perfect mind. Let's just assume, since we all, I think, believe in God already, whether we call it God or all or supernatural mind or whatever, let's just assume that there is a mature adult mind in charge, okay? And that adult mind is, it said, let us, so it's definitely a collective mind in some way, make man in our image, okay? So what is this collective mind, okay? Well, what did it make? Let us make man in our image. What did it make? Well, it made, okay, well, first of all, so what it made, what it said it would do, is it would make, what it decided to do, in other words, what seeds were planted? I'm sorry, I skipped the question. What seeds were planted? Okay, the seed that was planted first was God, the super adult mind, the finished mind, the parent, says, let us make man in our image. So this thought comes into the mind. Not that this is the first thought, but this is the current thought. Okay, and the reason why I say that, because there was the creative days before that. Okay, now it's let us make man in God's, in our image. Okay, so this collective mind that created everything decided the next thing I want to do is make man in my image. And what is that? So we're talking about children. So we see God is fertile. Okay, so God is fertile. He's going to have children. So what does the super adult mind, collective mind do to have children? Well, what does it do? It makes more individual minds. New child, empty individual minds to add to the collective mind. I mean, that's what it is. That's what we are. Child, mankind in our image. So the adult, mature mind of God is a collective of personalities, and collectively they work as one super adult mind, and that one super adult parent mind we call God, okay? And what does that God do, with his children? Is he lets his children grow up the same way he did. The God rested, and he let the children, the individual free will young minds in charge growing up. That's what he did. So basically, I like to think of the mother, standing at the kitchen window, washing dishes or preparing the meal, watching her children on the yard, and then the neighbor children all out there together playing, and there's some issues between them. There's some arguments and so forth and some problems, but she doesn't interfere because she knows that they need to learn how to work together. And that's how you do that. You start with, as children, learning to work together, and you mature to an adult mind. And that's what's been happening on earth. That was, we're looking at the seeds that were put into the egg, okay, to let the individual minds growing up in charge so that they can figure out the best way to run things on earth. Because everyone wants to do, as we know, personalities, individuals, there's limitless of us. And so there's already limitless of us in the collective, and in that collective mind, they create more individuals of us. So we're children of the mind of God. Can you see what we are? And we're at different levels of maturity. Let's go back to the chicken or the egg, okay? At what stage are we chicken, or what stage are we egg? In other words, how much are we just ignorance, egg? You know, you crack open an egg and what do you get? You know, it's just some part, just some potential, okay? Whereas the chicken is the complete, okay? Well, where are you personally along the line from egg to chicken? Do you know? Do you understand? Well, hopefully this video and all the videos to follow, that if you go ahead and complete the series that I put together, you'll come to understand where you are on the leg of being a chicken or egg. Because if you become a chicken, then you can become part of the collective mind, which means you continue forever. You become part of the infinite mind of the collective, and you can grow and become whatever. Whereas if you're still egg, by the end of your life cycle on this earth, what happens to you? Well, if you're in this egg, okay, and what you thought you were going to become, you don't become, you become something else, okay? In other words, this egg, although it's got free will, okay, it's going to become a chicken, okay? In other words, it's going to become what God said, let us make man in our image. What is this collective mind? What is the image of this collective mind? That's what's going to be created. Nothing else is possible. You can't create something out of nothing. And this collective mind is something, and what it creates is something, okay? But beyond that, there's nothing. Because this is God, this is it, okay? The one, the all. That's what, the one God, the one true God is this. This collective mind is the one true God. And does that make sense? Let's back out of that a little bit and let me help you to appreciate it. Everybody on earth wants to live forever, and they want to keep their personality and their character and the person that they've developed themselves into, okay? They want to keep that. That's extremely important. That's what all this everlasting life is all about and all, okay? But the thing is there's only one egg, okay? And we're all in the egg, and the egg is God, okay? So the shell of the egg is God, and everything in the shell of the egg is in some condition of being egg or chicken, okay? We know there's a lot of them in there that's already a chicken. This collective mind that's got this process going. Exactly how it started isn't the issue. The fact of the matter is it's working because here we are discussing it, okay? So this mature collective mind that's running the show for God, his super adult children running the show for God, has this earth where new, empty individual minds are growing up to become childlike in the person that they are. Not in a physical way, become a child of God, not so much in a physical way, but in what we are inside, the personality, the character, because let us make man in our image. Well, they were just spirit. Okay, well, what image? So the mind of God. So the purpose, so this chicken egg thing isn't making a physical chicken. It's making a spiritual chicken. Okay, so what stage of development are you from egg to chicken in your spiritual development so that you can be an additive to this collective mind as the one thing that is God already continues into existence. In other words, this is what I've tried to do, brothers, is I tried to walk you around the fact that being afraid to lose your personal character or personality is really a redundant thing because we're already there. In other words, we are already, think of God as an amoeba, okay? Just a big, huge amoeba. And on this amoeba, on the surface of the skin of this amoeba are billions of fingers sticking out, okay? And all of these fingers have their own objective in life, their own, person, the one true thing they're looking for to accomplish, every one of them, because they're all facing in a different direction a little bit. And what they're trying to accomplish, they all want to survive. They all want to grow. They want to mature. They want to become the best they can be. And every one of those little fingers represents every one of these collective mind, okay? And you and one, and I'm one, and we live not in as amoeba with little fingers sticking out anymore, at least not us personally, because we're at the top of the growth cycle. We're at the, God is creating with thought, and we're the highest part in that thought. He went through creating everything else, and then he said, let us make man in our image, and we're part of that part. And we're in the process of our minds going from empty. God rested to allow our minds to fill up because they're empty. And so he rested. So our free will, our individual minds, working through a collective will, okay, but as individual minds growing, okay, so that they could learn to be in charge and be part of the collective mind as well. So the question is do you have everlasting life? Yeah, we all have everlasting life. The question is where are we in the cycle of becoming egg or chicken, okay? In other words, a person that lives the life of a farmer lives a wonderful life as a farmer, a perfect life as a farmer. But in the process of going from egg to chicken, okay, they're not 100% chicken, because 100% chicken would be not only just being a farmer, but he would be a farmer that would understand everything about nature about him. He would be completely in tune with everything as a farmer. He would be the farmer that other people would come to and ask him, hey, look, what's the best way to do that and this and that? Because him as a farmer is so successful, everybody just naturally wants to mimic his farming skills and all, because his are the best. He's 100% chicken, whereas most farmers might only be somewhere in between. Like right now, my farming skills, I'm not. I've actually had gardens in the past and been successful, so I'm not egg, but I'm certainly not chicken either. I'm somewhere in between in that field. Okay, but on the other hand, in this collective mind, every field is important, okay? But the question is, it's going to be in that field, okay? Nobody is 100% chicken in everything, because that's the purpose of the collective. The collective mind of God is all the collective minds of all the people that ever lived, all that they know about subjects and so forth and so on and whatever. That's all stored somewhere, and it's stored in the individual minds of you and me's that collectively make up the mind of God, the super adult mind of God. And that super adult mind of God has a free will, and that free will dominates these, because they're the parents and we're the children. Like a mother watching her children in the yard, play their antics and all, but not interfering. Okay, so that's what we're having to do, is just watch this happen, okay? The process of going from chicken to egg, if you're one of the adults, you have to watch it happen to some degree. But at the same time, if some force or some issues beyond the control of the children come in, like the mother's looking out there in the yard, and some and a vulture sits on the, lands on the fence, and he starts looking at one like he's picking out which one he's going to fly off with, Then the mother's going to step in. She's going to go out there with her broom and shoo off the vulture. And so the question is how much parenting does this collective mind need to do in order for the children to grow up and become into charge without interfering? Okay, and that's really what this is all about. And so the Bible basically is just a book that was provided by the collective mind, okay? Exactly how much it actually follows a chain of events that physically happened or not isn't really important. Although it could have happened, very, very much like what happened in the Bible, but the Bible just picks up the exact parts that were important to be carried through time to help us to figure out what really what's really going on in this collective mind. What are we trying to really accomplish? And so looking at it from this viewpoint, okay, that I just looked at it, okay, hey, look, this is what's happening, okay? And nobody should disagree with this. I mean, this is so basic in the Bible, and this has been taught. I mean, this is, God rested and mankind took off, okay? So, and then I never went down. Let's go to the next bit now. So it says, the empty minds now begin to create. What did they create first? Okay, so that's the question. So Adam and Eve now have their child minds. They're in charge. They're the two that got started. Let's just keep it simple. Let's just follow the story in Genesis. So here they just get started. And what was the first thing they create? What do you think it is? The first thing they create. And it's not the devil. If you think it's the devil, if I'm going to say that, it's not. Okay, let's eliminate the devil. It's not the devil. What's the first thing that they create? And it's not a negative thing. It's not a bad thing in itself. But they created this, and once they created that, they misunderstood it. They couldn't figure it out. They didn't understand. And the interpretation that they gave it led to the devil, unfortunately. What do you think was the first thing they created? Eve and Adam's what fell in the Bible? Their countenance had fallen. So basically, the first thing they created was they felt bad. They had hurt feelings. A fear. They felt something happened, and they felt like they weren't in touch with the collective mind anymore. They were disturbed. Something wasn't right. And so they had to figure it out. They knew that they weren't bad. They knew there was nothing wrong with them. It had to be somebody outside of them that caused them to do something that made them hurt, and they didn't understand it. And those hurt feelings that they created, they had to figure out what to do with them. And guess what they did? Unfortunately. However it exactly happened, Eve going to the tree and this and that and all, it's just, again, it's not so much what the story is what was the intent of the mind of the all, the collective mind, trying to project to its children so that they would make the best decision possible to go forward, okay? What's really the information that's been trying to get to us? Because you see, once Adam and Eve fell into this trap, let's just project, okay, what did they couldn't figure it out until they did figure something out, and they figured out a devil, okay? And once they fell into that, they figured that out. Basically, they built a foundation on that thought, okay? But it's not the correct foundation of what they were built on. It's what they thought it was when they had these bad feelings they didn't understand. And so even to this day, when we don't like something or whatever, who did it? The devil, the devil made me do it or something like that. The old Flip Wilson joke. Now, I've gone through videos that discussed all this stuff, so I'm not going to get back into it. But now let's take this. Now, so really what we've done so far in this discussion, we went from egg to chicken, okay? Let's look at it from the opposite viewpoint. Now, let's look at it from the chicken to the egg. So let's say today you are one of the collective mind, but you still happen to be on Earth. In other words, you're a super adult mind. You're one of the mature men or women at the table saying, hey, look, let's make sure the children are safe. There's no vultures sitting on a fence over here trying to pick one out. Let's make sure everything's in order, because that's what we are. We're the adults in the room, okay? So as an adult in the room, presently on Earth, working with the collective mind, what do you think you want to accomplish on Earth? Do you want to destroy all the free wills that you've been... the children of God that you've been developing into whatever they are, whatever stage they happen to be in right now, all the individual minds growing so that they can one day be able to be mature enough to be in charge of their individual lives first, and then be able to collectively be part of the collective mind, depending on what stage of life they're in, whether they're still physically on Earth or they're just in the collective mind, with God. You know, because we cycle through. You know, we cycle through. You know, that's what life is. You know, the chicken or the egg is the universe as it works. You know, life as it is, and as it is, this is the cycle of life. This is the cycle of life. Many have heard me say that God doesn't have any dead children. You know, and the point is there's no dead children here. You know, everyone has everlasting life. We don't lose our individuality because we already have our individuality. There's nothing to lose. There's nothing to change. There's nothing that can be broken. You know, the person you're becoming, the free will that individual mind that you're becoming, that's what we're growing. That's what was planted. God wants to let us make man in our image. Well, what is our image? Our image is a collective mind of individual minds that work together in harmony as a super adult mind, raising young minds into infinity. And we're in that process right now. And the part of the process that we're in words, think of mankind as a flower blooming, okay? The Eastern, the Occidental, the Oriental tradition, they use a lotus flower, you know, a lotus flower starting from the mud and the water and then growing into becoming this beautiful flower. And then in the Occidental or in the Western tradition, they use the rose growing from the mud and, you know, from the seed, the mud growing up and becoming this beautiful flower. Well, what's happening right now is mankind is in, individuals of mankind are this rose or this locust flower that was planted, that is growing, and individually we're blossoming into a flower. Being a human, we're a flower, okay? But the question is how many petals do we have on us? Are we a very simple rose, or are we a big rose that has hundreds of petals? Are we a simple lotus flower, or do we have thousands of petals? And of course, roses, and you know, the thought is that, you know, flowers that are continuously making new petals. You know, I think of like a magnolia rose blossoming. You know, one layer of petals at a time, and the bees come, and the next day the next layer opens, and the bees come, and it's a cycle of life, of going from chicken to egg as individual minds growing to become part of the collective mind. And so no child ever dies, they just may not be growing. In fact, they may be regressing. In other words, they may be fertilizer. In the cycle of life processes, what part of the plant are they? You know, are they just the nutrition about to come in, the fertilizer? You know, is that the part of the plant? Very, very rudimentary, but necessary. And, you know, in the growth process of making children, you know, of making a flower, you have to have the rudimentary parts, and then from that you build on that, you make it more complex, more logical, and then eventually you have a flower. You know, and that's so right now mankind is actually blossoming into a flower as individual minds growing begin to recognize the process I just described here, that we are, you know, as the adults in the room, as like, for instance, Jehovah's Witnesses, that organization claims that they have God's direction, that the adults in the room, the collective spiritual mind is working through them. Well, if that's true, what are they teaching? Are they teaching to destroy the chicken? Most of the stuff inside of the chicken is bad. We're going to destroy it. We're going to start over. We just don't like it anymore. You know, most of the individual minds and the collective mind we're not happy with. You know, that's a disturbed mind that thinks that way, okay? You know, because this is the reality of it. So what did they first create? Adam and Eve first created, they started to become people, and they had bad feelings, okay? The first things that they went through their mind was confusion and whatever, and no matter how oriented they first originally got, they were still ignorant in life, and eventually their bad feelings got to them because they felt like, you know, life was against them. You know, the super adult mind was against them for some reason. There must be a reason. And then they evidently figured out the devil, And so evidently, so now the process of going from egg to chicken, there's a devil in the egg trying to prevent the egg from becoming a chicken. Now, if you had a chicken egg and inside that chicken egg, there was a force trying to prevent it from ever becoming a chicken, do you think that egg would ever become a chicken? There's no way. There's no way. If inside of any egg you had a force that's determined not for that thing not to accomplish, that's like, you don't have to wait for the snake to show up and eat the egg. The snake's already in the egg, Why would the egg could never succeed. And so the thought that the collective mind would on purpose, insert, a toxic element into this chicken egg would be absurd. I mean, it's just an absurd thought. And so looking at it from the chicken back to the egg, as adults, we realize, mankind is going through a lot of bad times, and it's having some bad times today still. But why? Why is because the individual minds in charge are immature, and they're treating the chicken egg world that we live in badly, and they don't understand. You're shooting yourself in the foot is the correct expression for it, because mankind is just one thing. Now, I mean, look, let's not keep this out of context. The collective mind is in charge. I mean, the mother knows what's going on. If she's looking out the window, she's watching. If there's something in danger that would, be detrimental, actually, to where there would be something permanently, to keep this chicken from fully, continuing into existence, then it would stop. It would interfere. But the question is how much does mankind want to shit in its pants before it realizes, man, this stinks. I don't want to do this anymore. How many countries think that they can just, destroy their neighbor? How many people think that they can just hurt another person, to damage another person, and there's no consequence? I mean, we are a collective mind. That's what we are. So if we are a collective mind and we don't love ourselves, we got a problem, because everybody else in the collective mind are trying to love themselves, and we're the one not trying to love ourselves. And a symptom of not loving ourselves is hurting other people. And so when you try to be part of the collective mind of God, and you hate or you hurt or have done that and have that guilt on you, then it's hard for you to be part of the collective mind, because you're like a child with shit in his pants. It wants to play with all the other children, and all the other children don't want to smell it. And so why should Jehovah's Witnesses have a guilt complex? Yeah, they should, because guess what? They hadn't figured out that the toilets are a nice thing. It really is. It was modern. There's don't keep your head in the sand and say there's nothing out there that I can use. How does God answer prayers? You think, hey, look, I need to know what the heck's going on so I can make this world a better place, but don't tell me nothing. I mean, that's backwards. It really is. Look, I'm approaching 30 minutes. I think I've covered this really well, enough to where anybody now can think about this from either viewpoint, okay? If the mind of God is a collective mind of adult minds of children of God that have lived in the past, that are in charge with Jesus in charge, the collective Jesus, if you want to look at it from a Jehovah's Witness viewpoint, Jesus is the person speaking, and he says, let us make man in our image. That's all. That's the anointed in heaven with him already, or on earth if they are really part of this collective mind. But if they're not, and they think they are, then they're just fooling themselves and hurting a lot of other people, because they're not really helping people to grow so that they can use their individual mind to be the best they can be, so that the world as a collective whole is a world of, people that only do the best. And so if you're in a world where people only know how to do their best, and their best is the best, and they're teaching the children that too, I mean, where are you going? I mean, talking about, the Bible talks about shepherding the sheep and so forth. Well, I mean, if that's not shepherding the sheep properly, explain to me, what's better. Well, look, thank you very much. Love to all mankind, peace and security on earth. I saw that the UN is really doing well right now with some good topics and conversations. They understand that it's the responsibility of men and women to take charge of this earth and say, we're going to make sure things are good.